Welcome to the Cashflow Project podcast. Are you looking to better your financial situation by increasing your cash flow? Too busy to hunt for real estate deals or don't know where to start? Then you're in the right spot. Join us as we dive in and talk about investing for cash flow using multifamily real estate.
Welcome to the Cashflow Project podcast. I'm your host, Steve Fioros with Tri-City Equity Group. Today, excited, we've got Vince Shorb on the show. Vince is one of the country's leading advocates for promoting financial literacy and a thought leader in teaching and scaling financial education programming. After spending 15 years in financial services, I know he was involved in real estate, so we're going to dive a little bit into that a little bit later on too. He worked one-on-one with over 20,000 people, and he decided to found the National Financial Educators Council. It's an organization, they're dedicated to combating financial illiteracy. You and I both know, all of our listeners would know, we don't talk enough about financial literacy and about money in the schools today. It's just not a thing. And so I'm super excited to have Vince on the show today. He's been featured in multiple publications. He's been featured in USA Today, CNBC, Yahoo Finance, Forbes, CNN Money, Market Watch, all the good stuff. So definitely excited to have Vince on the show. Vince, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I am excited to have you on. I do think what you're teaching on in financial literacy is absolutely vital today. It's something that I'm very blessed that we get a chance to teach our kids on, but I know that's not the reality for most people today. They get well into adulthood and kind of never get a chance to kind of get their firm foundation set beneath them. But before you got into financial education, give us a little bit of your backstory. How did you get involved into this space? Were you a teacher before, or did you always have some kind of insight into sharing information, or what? Give us a little bit of your background.
You know, from a young age, I always had a passion about money, whether it be a small business, collecting cans, selling lizards, whatever it may be. Always had an interest. In school, I was very frustrated, especially high school, sophomore, junior, senior year. Before, I was very studious and did well, need to know the basics. But after that, I was like, do I really need this? Do I really care what this chemistry equation is? Or why do I need to take advanced algebra? I can care less. So I was the guy back in class. I was goofing off sometimes, but most of the time I was reading. I loved real estate. I loved business. I'd be in the back of class reading those books. My friends joked around with me, but that led me to some early success. Bought my first place at 19, bought a series of different properties thereafter. And the thing I loved most during that time was people asking me, hey, how did you do that? Hey, can you help me with my budget? Can you do this? And even older people, right? So people in their 40s, 50s were asking me, my parents' friends were asking me, and I really enjoyed that time. And I made some mistakes at that time, namely pulling out money on my credit cards because I thought I had the golden ticket. Everything was successful. I made some mistakes, got behind the 8 ball. And from that time on, I really just want to help people avoid the dumb mistakes I got into, right? My real estate was still, in portfolio was still intact. I was still growing, but it set me back many years. And to pay mortgages, I was scrounging through couch cushions and trying to find odd jobs and all those fun things you do when you're trying to hustle and keep afloat. And I got into the financial service space to help people. And so I spent many years in the mortgage industry, and I really enjoyed that. But what I felt was I was putting Band-Aids on people. I'd help somebody pay off their debt, consolidate everything. They'd have $2,000 extra a month. And 3, 6, 8 months later, they'd come back. Hey, I need another 50 grand, I need another 100 grand. Well, what'd you do with the last? Oh, I went on vacation, bought a boat. So I felt like I wasn't truly helping them where they needed. I was also very frustrated. People would be buying homes and be refinancing half dozen times. They'd still have no idea on the process. How do you not know what this is after all these things you went through? And it's one of your biggest investments. So it took me to reflect and say, hey, how can I really help people from a bigger perspective? And it led me to financial education, which I founded the National Financial Educators Council back in 2006, so 18 years ago. And since then, we've just been really growing and scaling local financial wellness initiatives and communities across the country. And that leads us to here now.
And that's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, and it's good that you learned firsthand, right? So some of these things. And a lot of times life teaches us lessons that we need to, right? In order to make that transition to be able to provide more value, let's say, to the marketplace as a whole. So yeah, super interesting. And it just dawned on me as you're kind of sharing some of that, like you were helping, let's say, people refinance and whatnot. And hey, you do a cash out refinance. Hey, the market gave you, hey, a ton of equity. Now you've got something to do, or you're going to do some debt consolidation. But what do you do from there? And it made me think like most of our listeners, they're investors or they're trying to do something else to kind of better their financial position as well. But it just kind of registered with me. It's like, oh yeah, sure. We can teach them, we can show them how they can make, let's say, these massive investment gains. But where do they go from there? Right? It never dawned on me that we don't put necessarily they have a personal responsibility, of course, to be wise with the gain. And yeah, you're exactly right. You can make a lot of money in real estate and in business in general. But what do you do from there? Like you need to have those tools in place.
True. Yeah. And I would always enjoy talking to investors where they're pulling cash out to make other investments and they're very strategic. I always spend extra time with them because I like to learn. Right. And I learned a lot through really watching not only the bad role models when it came to money, but also the good ones. So I had a great perspective that the mortgage industry gave me and being able to talk to so many people, seeing what some people were doing right, seeing what some people were doing wrong. And the really interesting thing is with my friends that we worked together, I was always very frugal, kept my overhead low, always making investments with money. They got caught up, right? Their rates were at 4.99, dropped a little lower. We got to 4.5 in my days. And they were buying the second homes, buying the cars, buying them. Like, you guys see who we're helping. You see the problems they're going into. You think these rates are going to last like that forever. And a couple years later, selling the home, fire sale. Hey, you want to buy a fifth wheel? No, 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 thanks, man. So even when they're in it and seeing it, they didn't see what the potential was. So it's interesting, even the most sophisticated people where you think, hey, they have some expertise are making some mistakes. I think it's rooted in behaviors. I think it's rooted in a lot of what we're teaching. Hey, how to address these behaviors and influences that are driving certain purchases when they may not be needed.
Yeah, you're almost playing a shrink, so to speak, right? It just in terms of because a lot of it is just, hey, you know what? You have these unconscious drivers that you have that are like prompting you to want to, hey, well, I've got to impress some people. I've got to whatever, right? Like it's almost like a band-aid for we just think, well, I'm buying a car. It's like, yeah, but okay, well, you could just buy a car. You could buy a Toyota Corolla. Nothing wrong with a Corolla, great efficient car. It's gonna last you a million miles. Well, do you necessarily need the Lambo or the Lexus or whatever? I mean, again, no knock on anybody's any of the cars, but yeah, no, there's some other drivers that are there, and we just kind of never take the time to flesh that out. And you definitely have a unique experience. I would say, like being in the mortgage industry, you get to peek behind the curtain, and you're getting a direct look at everybody's finances from that perspective, way more than any other facet of the industry. Agents they're not seeing it. Any other people, the title companies, not necessarily seeing any of that stuff. You're dealing with them directly. So unique perspective for sure.
It was very unique, and you talk to people and you think things are very rosy when you're having that initial conversation, a credit report, a few asset statements later in the bank account. You're like, I'm a little worried for these people. And really back in my day, more people were on the edge than you would think. So every time I see somebody and what they're showing, okay, is this the reality of who they are? Or is it just something they're living for Instagram or these other things out there? So it is very interesting, and it is a scary look oftentimes into people's financial backyard.
Yeah, no, for sure. Now, I am curious to ask you. Now, we're after this last couple of years, a significant amount of rate hikes. We're in a kind of a newer period of where we are in the financial markets. What are you seeing today as like the biggest challenges for the people that you're working with? I know credit card debt is at all-time highs, student debt repayments, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of headwinds that are affecting today's buyer. They're just really just everybody. But what are you seeing today as kind of the biggest challenges, and kind of what are some tools that you're using to be able to help them?
Yeah, so I'm getting my feedback. We train and certify coaches and educators, financial coaches and educators that are really boots on the grounds in all these communities. So we're in every state in 70 countries. So I'm hearing a lot from very diverse segments of the US. And it's interesting. It's people are just trying to keep their heads above water. I mean, when I'm out talking to my Uber driver, whomever, I'm having those conversations as well. But it's they've been battling. They've been battling for the last few years, higher inflation, higher interest rates. And we're starting to see some job loss in tech space and so forth. And they're just trying to keep their heads above water. And a lot of people that our coaches are experiencing, they're at the stage of almost burnout. How much longer can I tread water, keep my mouth just above that water line? So it is scary. I feel for those people. And I always say, hey, it's a time that they need to really put in heavy and hard work to keep their heads above water. At the other hand, I think it's a great opportunity for everybody. I think the market always provides great opportunity. We've seen it with real estate. We've seen it in other spaces. So there's always great opportunity, but people aren't able to the average person is not able to capitalize on that opportunity due to lack of finances, but also lack of education. They just don't know what to do, and they're scared and they're worried. What am I going to do if this and that happens? I think that makes people freeze. You've seen it before, I'm sure, where people are trying to make a important decision. They don't have the knowledge or confidence to make that decision, so they freeze and they don't do anything often. And we're seeing a lot of that now as well. So it's a scary time for people. And really, it's a time I tell people, hey, there's no easy choice with money. You either have to earn more or cut down your expenses. That's basically right. Yeah, you can refinance, you can lower your interest, all these things will cut down. But the basic, hey, you can earn more or you cut down your expenses. Which one are you going to choose? And right now, it's at a very hard time. I just did an interview for NerdWallet, and they said, hey, a lot more people are considering just letting their car go because they're behind on their notes. And I'm like, well, that's the thing. If they're giving up their car now, that's a scary thing. What's next? The car is important to somebody. When they're giving up something of importance to them, what is next? That's the scary part I'm worried about for the average person.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We've got contacts kind of in that space also, like on the lending side. And they're just like, it's brutal in terms of delinquency and people like that. They just you know what, I can't pay this. And this is not a priority for me right now. They're just going to let it go and let it go repoed. Obviously that affects your credit and other things, but with just some financial education, right? With some planning, some proper planning, you can help to avoid a lot of these different problems, right? These challenges that come up. And you're exactly right? The market is all cyclical. And I think a lot of times we talk a lot about that here on the show. I'm always glad to talk to people who have been through some different market cycles. Obviously, you would have seen the GFC. I went through that myself. And so it's like, well, things don't stay up forever and they don't stay down forever either. But you have to learn how to kind of navigate those waters to be able to sustain until we get to the market turns a bit, right? Those people who are just letting go of their cart. Well, guess what? If you had some savings set aside or some additional resources to be able to tap into it, maybe you don't have to do that. Same thing for your house or whatever else. You give yourself some margin there, some cushion. And yeah, I feel you just with some of the clients that you guys are working with, they just don't have it. Well, not to give away the secret sauce, but do you guys have any like success stories or like some practical tools that, I mean, obviously I know that you do, but anything that you can share maybe with our listeners here on the show?
Yeah, I know your listeners are more sophisticated, they're investors and so forth. And I always like to, you're on that right path. If you're getting education, you're on that right path. Learning about money is an ongoing process, as your listeners know. So you're doing right. Where I want to kind of focus them maybe is on their kids, just for a moment, because money's not taught in school. The few states that do require it, it's at such a low level, it will make absolutely no difference in their lives. So really for those that have families, kids, younger brothers and sisters, whomever, it's really critical. Hey, you're helping them to mold positive behaviors. Financial habits form between 7 and 9. So with all the ads and influencers, that's when these consumerism habits are forming these days. So it's really hard to change habits after they're formed. And with teens, it's really about preparing them for the near-term things that they're going to face. Moving out on your own, how not to mess up your credit early, how to stay out of debt. And really, I think that proactive approach can do a whole lot of good. I have young friends from the gym that are in $100,000 in student loan debt, and they still don't know what they're going to do. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? So I'm having this conversation with these kids that have a bright future, really smart kids, and they've kind of messed it up with getting into large amounts of debt that's going to put off any investments they make, any plans for retirement because of that. So I think for those that have those families, young kids, that's kind of the focus. But really for your listeners, the beauty of money, it's ever changing. As long as you're committed to your ongoing education, following through on those steps, making sure your foundation's strong. You can build a house. Like I built a house early, but I didn't have the foundation. I didn't know credit. I didn't know budgeting. I didn't know risk management. Those were all skills I developed over time. And hey, we're going to make mistakes here and there, but it's all skill sets that are going to be built in the house for you. So I know your listeners are on the right track here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thank you for speaking to that as well, because I think that is something easy to forget. And for one, thinking generationally, I've got a couple of young kids, and that's something that we talk about frequently, just incorporating it into the dinner table, into your conversations. Hey, well, this is how this works. So this is what supply and demand. It's just simple financial concepts that are kind of universal. But you're right. They're not teaching it in schools. And to your point too, about like, let's say social media and whatnot, you and I weren't facing that growing
No.
up, let's say. Right. And so I don't think that we're even going to see like the full breadth of what kind of impact that's going to have, let's say, for like generations to come, right? Like, and this stuff is going to play out in these next couple of decades, and we will start to see, hey, wow, okay, we're going to have this bigger gap, and we're seeing it now in terms of the people that are financially literate or have parents that have taught them some skills in that capacity versus the people that are not, and they're focused on the wrong things. And it's like, wow, like, okay, like this is not going to get worse, or it's not going to get better, rather. So you have to be proactive. And to all the parents out there, teach your kids, because if not, Instagram, TikTok, and all that, they're going to do it. And so you need to kind of grab the reins there and focus on what it is that you're actually imparting to them. So no, I thank you for helping to bring focus to that, because that's huge, huge.
It is interesting today. That's the challenge of the modern world, right? Like you said, they had TV, radio, and smoke signals when I grew up in advertising. Nowadays it's more complex, but the neat thing is, and where I wish, and look, you're younger than me, so maybe you didn't have to do this, but where I got my knowledge back then was outdated books in the library. When Barnes and Nobles came around, I was in there, all of them updated books. I'm so excited. Nowadays, we have knowledge at our fingertips, right? I can watch your podcast. I can learn from people that I connect with. And so there's so many opportunities to learn. That's the beauty of today. And I think one of the takeaways I always like to leave people with is, hey, if we can instill that love of learning in our kids, and if they want to start a business, we can watch YouTube videos with them. If they want to save for a bike or whatever, hey, we can watch this thing, right? We can learn together on personal finance and so forth. So it doesn't have to be me teaching a kid. We can leverage modern society. They can find those podcasters, those authors, those people that they like to connect with, and they can learn some cool things, as opposed to me having to go through Dewey Decimal System, getting some book that was written 20 years earlier. It's like, okay, well, this is not applicable today. So that is the one benefit that you do have today.
That's true. That's true. And that actually kind of pulls away like any excuse that people have too, right? It's so easy. It's so accessible. Guess what? You don't want to go to the library. You don't have a library card. I understand. There's no excuse. You can hop on YouTube, on Audible, or whatever. And there's so many resources out there now to be able to get information in terms of financial education and improving your literacy. You didn't come from a wealthy family. Neither did I. Like totally fine. Like, there's no excuse. You can learn. So yeah, no, you're right there. That's great. Well, this is the part of our show where we transition to what we call our fire round. Just a little bit more rapid fire, a little bit more kind of brief Q&A. Is that something you're up for?
I'll all set.
Awesome. Let's do it. All right. First question. What is the best book that you recommend, other than for us real estate investors? That's always been Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the Purple Bible. What book would you recommend for our listeners?
Well, right now I'm big into education books. So my one I'm into right now is A Case Against Education. And I think it lends some insight into what we learned and how we're, really molding the same skill sets that everybody has. So the schools teach exactly the same thing to everybody. So the takeaway might not seem like it's fitting for this answer, but the takeaway is find skill sets that aren't being taught in schools, develop those so you have a competitive advantage against the average person.
Oh, I love that answer. And I think that's super powerful. I mean, if I'm speaking to younger people now, we focus so much on technology for the last couple of decades. There's so few people in the trades right now. It's like, you know what? Like, hey, you don't have to go into six-figure debt to go get an education. Go learn a trade if you're decent at all with your hands. I mean, man, they're about the shortage. We have people aging out of plumbers and electricians and anybody in the trades. You can make a killing. I mean, it's just supply and demand. I mean, it really is simple. So just get some practical education and you can set yourself up very well. So I think that's a perfect answer. It's all skill building always.
In these growth areas, if you're investing in growth areas, I'm in Dallas areas we talked about, and there's a huge shortage of electricians, plumbers. I do a lot of rehabs. So I've been picking up those skills. I've been doing my own plumbing, my own electric, and it's just because it's so expensive, and they're hard to find good ones. I'm doing better electric work than some of the people that I've been hiring. I'm like, hey, that should not be like that, right? So, if you're in real estate, you need to gain those skills on those areas on where you're hiring people, so you know how to review and make sure they're doing things right as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's actually really good. Really good. But we got tons of property in Dallas, so we'll hit you up if we need some electrical work. Yeah.
I don't know if I'm on board for that. I think I love the area. It's growing rapidly. It's just, it's amazing to see that what 20 years has done to this. I'm in
Oh, yeah.
the Frisco area, this North Dallas area. It's just amazing, from cow fields to just high end homes in neat area.
Oh, absolutely. And a lot of our listeners are maybe investors with us already, and they know they've seen the OMs and the different things that we put on deals. We have multiple properties, let's say in Dallas. So I've spent quite a few years there, and growing up in Texas myself, driving up and down I-35, for those of our listeners that or may not be familiar with Texas or have some semblance on a map, there's some main corridors. And to Vince's point there, it literally used to be just grazed pasture land, just literally nothing for long stretches. And I was there maybe, I don't know, 6 months ago, and driving from, let's say, Austin up to Dallas. And oh my goodness, there is so few stretches now where it's just green. It is so developed. There's so much activity, so much business happening there. Insane. It's the growth there is incredible. Incredible. All right. Next question. What would you consider your superpower to be?
I think resiliency, just because there's challenges, you have goals, you work toward them. There's things that are always setting you off from those goals, but it's just a long-term focus, and things go up, go down, they go your way, they don't go your way. And it's life, right? So I think over time, when I was younger, I was impatient. What the heck? Why is this going on? I'd maybe use more colorful language than that offline, but yeah, I'd get upset, and really it's just, hey, that's life. Big deal. Okay. It's just letting things roll off your back and just, oh, what's the next plan? Right. Okay. What do I do from here? And I think that's been my superpower that I think has helped me the most getting here.
It's definitely a superpower. Being resilient is absolutely vital, because again, you are going to have those hard times. That's part of life. It's inevitable, but being able to stick through it and knowing that it's not the end of the world. Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
True.
All right. Next question. What is the biggest lesson that you've learned over your career thus far?
Biggest lesson, I would say, it might go back to resiliency a little bit, but don't put all your eggs in one basket until you're sure of that basket. So I like to do a lot of tests, trials, dip the toe in and seeing what's worked, getting feedback. I handle, let's say, 80% of our daily calls that are just random people. Might be a very tiny client, doesn't matter. 80% of those calls, so I can understand what's going on in that world that we're serving, right? So I try to stay connected to that. So I would say, hey, and that helps me aim better, right? So when I'm doing these tests, I know, hey, 50 people we're talking about that. Now we can try a product line here, or try a test market here, or try this change verbiage on these ads. So it's really about modifying and testing things. And when it works, dumping money into it and letting that roll.
Yep. Oh, very good. Very good. And a little similar, but maybe geared towards a little bit of a different audience here. Next question, for the busy working professional, somebody who's trying to work towards financial freedom. They've got maybe some foundation already established, but what advice would you have for them?
Easy. Dedicate time every day to your vision. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. It's easy when you don't do it and some time goes away. And whatever you're trying to learn right now, I'm taking a class on education reform. It's Stanford. It's free. It's online. I'm just taking it. And it's like, okay, well, I got to do 10 minutes, 15 minutes a day, even though I'm very busy, and just keeping that momentum. And I think with anybody that's trying to get to that next level, you need to dedicate some time to your longer term vision. Some people have this once a month thing where they review goals and plan out and so forth, which is fine. But if you're not in it every day, you lose momentum, you lose focus. And a lot of that time, after time passes, like, okay, what was I doing before? And you have to remind yourself, catch up. Oh, where was that document? But if you have that momentum going, even if it's a short amount of time, exactly where to pick up the next day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I 100% agree with that. Really good. Just that little bit step every day, just constant progress. And boy, it's so easy to build on that momentum versus if you're at a standstill, man, the amount of energy it takes to get going again, it's incredible. That can be very frustrating.
Very true.
Well, Vince, if our listeners want to reach out to you, they want to get in touch with you, they maybe want to pick your brain, or they've got questions, they want to learn more. What's the best way for them to reach out and connect with you?
Really two ways: our website, financialeducatorscouncil.org, or you can reach out to me personally, Vince Shorb, SHORB, on LinkedIn. And really, I like to connect with anybody that's advocates for financial education that wants us promoted in their local area, and really people that want to make a difference. So feel free to reach out anytime, but I appreciate what you're doing here on the show. Again, education can be fun, as you're showing here. So I appreciate you and your efforts, and thanks for having me on.
No, absolutely. I greatly appreciate you taking the time and spending time with us and our listeners. And if you have questions, make sure that you're reaching out to Bench. And even if maybe you feel like, well, I got a pretty good handle, but maybe you want some additional tools for a loved one, for a coworker or whatever, see what's available, see what they've got talking to you. And that may make it a little easier to help other people that you care about in your life or you want to see succeed. So make sure that you're reaching out to Vince and his team. Well, Vince, been a pleasure. I really appreciate all that you're doing for the community and for really the world, that being that you guys are not just domestic but international, it sounds like. But thanks for coming on and taking some time out of your schedule. We really appreciate you and wish you tons of success. Have a great one. Aloha. Awesome conversation with Vince Shorb, providing a very valuable service in the marketplace right now. I mean, it's always needed, but definitely right now where people are struggling with higher interest rates, let's say on mortgages, on consumer debt, right? We're seeing that, these levels at all-time highs. The consumer is getting really squeezed right now. So something that we can help ourselves with, of course, is always financial education. Obviously, we're talking a lot on our show about investing and how you can increase, let's say, on the income side, but learning how to manage finances, kind of having a overall healthy situation or vantage point of your own personal finances is absolutely vital to set yourself up for long-term success. Also thinking generationally, hey, this is something you're going to teach your kids. They're not talking about this in school. I don't know if they've ever taught this about in school. So we have to take it on ourselves. Like I say, those of us that might be parents or if you've got nieces and nephews and you want to kind of give them a heads up, you guys are successful, right? Okay. Well, hey, how can we pass along some of this information to educate the next generation? So great show. So make sure you guys are checking Vince out and their team on the Educators Council. Hey guys, well, that's going to be it for us today. If you guys, of course, want to learn about more and the deals that we've got going on with Tri-City Equity, go to tricityequity.com to learn more about what the deals that we've got going on and what we're involved in, how you can connect with us and be a partner with us potentially. If you're local, we'd love to put a face to the name. We'd love to meet you locally. If you had some recent investors out that were on island traveling and they wanted to connect, was able to do that recently. That happens frequently. We meet every month in person. Would love to meet you. Check out the Honolulu Multifamily more. You can also find us on Bigger Pockets, meetup.com, multiple avenues to be able to find out when the next meetup is going to be here locally. Of course, if you guys are finding value in on the show and the guests that we bring on, make sure that you're sharing the show, that you're leaving us a 5-star review. Of course, for one, that's going to help us to get more exposure, but also recommend it to a friend. Hey, I actually got some good value out of the show. Okay, well, hey, maybe you want to check out this podcast, check out these guys, see what they're talking about. I would greatly appreciate that. Then, of course, if you're going to be here on island this summer, make sure that you're making plans to be here July 10th to the 13th for the Hawaii Millionaire Mindset Conference. Again, you want to be a millionaire, maybe you want to scale up and to become a decamillionaire, a centimillionaire, or you just want to level up your game no matter what it is that you're doing. Make sure that you're making plans to be there, work on your mindset, we'll give you the blueprint, right? The strategy, the tools that you need in order to achieve financial success in your personal life. So make sure that you're making plans to be there. It's an awesome venue. You're going to meet tons of great people. So make sure that you're making plans to be at the Hawaii Millionaire Mindset Conference. All right, guys, that's going to be it for us today. I'll sign off, go out, take some action, better yourselves, learn more on the financial side, and really just anything you can do to help develop yourself personally is always going to be a huge advantage. All right, guys, we'll talk to you soon. See you on the next episode. Aloha.